afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Energy, Climate Change, and Environmental Justice Committee. Good afternoon. We're here with Council Members O'Farrell, Kokorian, and Koretz. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and start with public comment and general public comment. I will take both at the same time. Looks like we don't have any speakers for general public comment, but we have a few speakers for items number 12 and number 18. Can you please bring up the speakers for item 12?
For item 12, that would be Leah Garland.
I got it. I was just asking you to bring them up on my tablet. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with the first three speakers for item number 12. Can you hold on until I call your name? Okay. Thank you. And like I said, there is no speakers for general public comment, so this is only item number 12 that you signed up for. Lane Sempter? Lane Sempter, are you here? Pronounce that again for me? Semper. Got it. Sorry about that. Marsha Hanscom, are you here? Marsha, you want to come up? You can sit down. I'm calling you three at a time. Emily Ganay, are you here? And there's room for another one. Leah Garland. And each of you has 1 minute, and you're speaking on item number 12. Go ahead.
My name is Lane Semper. I am co-chair of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee. I'm a trained climate reality project leader, and I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm here for full support for this motion, and thank you very much for being champions for our climate.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Honorable Council Members, Marsha Hanscom with the Bayona Institute and also Secretary of the Sierra Club's Conservation Committee. I'm here in full support of this study for 100% renewable energy. 2 years ago, LADWP came to us, the public, with a plan to be 65% renewable energy by 2036, and most people at the workshops were disappointed and said, 100%, all the politicians are talking about 100%, and in fact, our mayor came to our National Sierra Club Board of Directors and said 100%. I'm there, so we really need to figure out how we can get there, and I think your leadership is going to make it happen. So thank you for voting yes, I hope.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Emily Abdelghani. I am a resident of Southern California. I am in full support of this motion because pollution and emissions do not have city or county borders. And as a resident of Southern California, my health and safety is affected by the choices that you and LADWP make today. So I urge you to pass this motion to study 100% renewable, not just for the future of LA, but for the future of Southern California. If the public utility is not willing to even study 100% renewable, then they are automatically signing up all of Southern California for more toxic air and water. And I believe that this committee and those at LADWP do not wish to pollute SoCal residents. So I urge you to pass this motion and support studying 100% renewable energy in this year's IRP.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Leah Garland, resident of Los Angeles, and I commend you for having this motion on the agenda today, and I urge you to pass it. I'm going to be adopting soon, and as a future mother, I would like to encourage this board to imagine what kind of Los Angeles you envision. I envision an LA where the population has good jobs in green energy, and green energy I do mean solar, wind, and geothermal, and not gas, biogas, and any of its variations, where our kids can ride bikes. I want my kid to be able to ride a bike and not have to worry about asthma or cancer. So this is a great opportunity for LADWP to be even better. 100% clean energy by 2030 is scientifically feasible. I've read the studies, and environmentally and economically responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next four speakers, Andrea Grossman, Jane Fowler, Alexandra Nagy, Myla Reason. Are you here? Myla? Myla is not in the room. Harvey Wasserman? Harvey Wasserman, are you here? Lorna Paisley? You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Leon Grossman, and I'm here with Food and Water Watch, and I'm urging you to pass this motion to study 100% renewable energy. As a ratepayer, as a member of the public, I think it's the right thing to do. Food and Water Watch commissioned a study to go 100% renewable energy by 2030, and we found that it was feasible. There's two ways of going 100% renewable energy, and there's even more ways to do that. That means good green jobs for our city, and that means clean air for everyone. In Mexico City, I had a family member die because he was waiting to be rescued during the earthquake last September, and we really need energy that is not going to kill us or harm us. We know that we're going to get an earthquake here in our city, and I just hope that we can transfer to clean energy sooner rather than later, and that's why I'm here to encourage every one of you to vote yes on this motion. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jane Fowler, and I do want to thank Councilmember Martinez, Krikorian, O'Farrell, Koretz. I have seen your work before, and I want to thank you for everything that you do. As an Angelino, it gives me hope that this committee understands the challenge we face if we don't act on climate and act swiftly. As a ratepayer, I want my utility to do everything in its power to source its energy responsibly, and the only way to do so is to go 100% renewable, clean energy. The first step is to study such scenario in this year's IRP and give us the opportunity to see it and have feedback. I urge you to pass this motion, and personally, I'm from Aliso Canyon, and there's a lot of pollution there. There's a lot of pollution here. I drive into downtown, and I can't see the blue sky, and I would like to see blue skies again here in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Nagy. I'm the senior organizer with Food and Water Watch. This motion on item 12 is really important. I urge you to pass it for mainly the reason that this is the public process this year for the Integrated Resource Plan. We haven't had a public process since 2016. And when I first got involved in Food and Water Watch about 6 years ago, I remember the community back then asking for DWP to model a 100% renewable energy scenario. That has yet to happen. Even though there's a stakeholder process with the 100% study, the IRP really gives an opportunity for public input, feedback, dialogue, discussion, which is why we need to seize this opportunity and mandate that DWP study a 100% renewable energy scenario in this year's IRP. It's time, and there needs to be more than one opportunity to look at this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, go ahead.
Lorna Paisley. I want to support the motion. I like Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, but I'd like bragging rights. I'd like to be able to tell people that we are 100% renewable. And it's scary some days when I'm cleaning a window or a door or washing food off and there's this black gunk and I think, oh my gosh, this is going into my lungs. This is not healthy. So please, let's do something to make this even a better city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Myla Reason in the room? I've called her twice already, okay. Joan Pelsner? Harvey Wasserman, is he in the room? Harvey Wasserman is not in the room. And Daryl Gale? Okay, Mr. Pelsner, you can go ahead and start. You have 1 minute.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As you know, LADWP is holding an advisory group study for 100% renewable energy. But as you also know, this study will not be completed until sometime in 2020, and there is no opportunity for the public to weigh in. In addition, fossil fuel corporations like Southern California Gas and Valero are sitting at the table, and they are weighing in for their climate-wrecking fuels. That is why I'm here today, advocating for every Angelino, because we all deserve clean air, clean energy, and a source of energy that won't contribute to climate change. Please pass this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Daryl Gale. I moved downtown in 2010 so that I could live without a car and get around on public transportation, which I do. Most of the public has bought the idea because of nonstop commercialization that natural gas is clean and it's okay. Well, if you take buses all the time, you're constantly having bus residue and bus asphyxiation while you're waiting for a bus, so nobody thinks about us bus riders. So I am really supporting, I know we will eventually be electrified with the bus system, but everyone deserves to have clean air, even people who ride the bus, good green jobs, and safe, reliable energy. So I'm very much for this number 12. Please think about the people who are walking around as pedestrians. There are a bunch of us here in LA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 18. We have one speaker. Can you bring that up on my tablet, please? Speaker for item number 18. Shana Ganguly, are you here? Did I pronounce her name right?
It's Shona.
Shona. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have 1 minute. You're speaking on item 18.
Yes,
Go
I'm
ahead.
Shona Ganguly from the Nature Conservancy. Thank you, council members, and thank you, Councilmember Martinez, for your leadership on environmental justice. I'm here to speak about, I could thank all of you, but I only have 50 seconds individually. So thank you for your leadership on the Safe Clean Water program. I also represent the Our Water LA Coalition, which is a diverse coalition across LA County, which includes Tree People Heal the Bay, Nature for All, there's Lane, and we really support nature-based solutions and equity in the Safe Clean Water program, so thank you for pushing those forward, and we support making sure that the Safe Clean Water program does include those things. The Board of Supervisors will vote on July 10th, so I hope that whatever comes out of the city is ready by July 10th. And if you need any other support, the Our Water LA Coalition and the Nature Conservancy are here to provide that support. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much. Molly Bassler? Are you sir? Did you just add your name?
Yes.
What item did you want to speak on?
Item 12, renewable energy for
I just closed it, but go ahead and come forward. Dave Gutman, are you here? What item?
Item 12.
12, okay.
Yes, hi, my name is Molly Basler. I'm a climate reality leader representing the Climate Reality Project, which was, as you know, I think started by Al Gore, former VP. So I just wanted to speak out for this item, that it's very important for the future, not only of Los Angeles, but of the world, that we go 100% renewable, sustainable energy, that we become green. We can already see the effects of not doing that. We got to get out of the dependence on fossil fuel and try new ways. And I want to thank all of you for being here and allowing us to voice this very, very, very important issue, because without a planet, without clean air, without clean water, we really don't have much. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yes, I'm Dave Gutman. I'm here from the Citizens Climate Lobby. And when I moved to Los Angeles in the 70s, we were having about 150 days on average of stage 1 smog alerts. The last stage 1 smog alert was 2006, I believe. Carbon is invisible, and we don't notice it as a pollutant, but it's creating problems similar to stage 1 smog alerts, both in the health of the citizens of Los Angeles and of the world. And moving to renewable will work to help alleviate some of that. And so I'm speaking in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We just had another person add her name. Lauren, are you here? Akiem, are you? There you are, Lauren. Item 18. You have 1 minute. Anyone else want to speak? Did you submit your name? Can you please do that as soon as, yeah. What item do you want to speak on? What item? 12? Okay. Go ahead and, anyone else? Okay, good. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yep.
Nice to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
It's just my grandma's 90th birthday, so it was
Oh.
a good weekend. Yeah, so thank you all for being here today and for considering this motion. My name is Lauren Akiem. I'm with the LA Alliance for a New Economy, and as Shona mentioned earlier, we've been working together with a lot of organizations on the Our Water LA Coalition and the County Safe Clean Water Measure. We feel it's incredibly important for the future of LA County's water resilience. It's also a really great opportunity for a lot of incredible job possibilities for construction and maintenance, and it's only going to be the strongest opportunity it can be if those jobs are good quality jobs, if those jobs are high standards, and if the investments from this measure are invested equitably throughout the city and throughout the county. So asking City of LA to demonstrate its leadership again, as it has in the past, to ensure that this measure has good quality jobs and that the investments are equitably invested throughout the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on. Did you sign up?
I just did, yeah.
Your name's not coming up on the tablet. What's your name?
Jeffrey Rex.
Jeffrey Rex. Do we have that on the record, guys?
Yeah, it's right here.
It's not on here. Okay, go ahead. You have 1 minute. Item number 12. There you go, Jeffrey Rex.
Yeah, Jeffrey Rex with the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council. I'm also part of their Sustainability Committee. I'm also a climate reality leader. I'm a lead AP, and I have a vested interest in my neighborhood as, you know, a stakeholder in the city to urge you to pass this 100% renewable study so that we can, as ratepayers, you know, just acknowledge that there are the opportunities to have this 100% renewable energy, and that it should at the very least be brought to the table for a study for our constituents to see the impacts and how feasible it is. So I urge you to pass this. Again, thank you for your time, and thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, I'm going to close public comment for all items, including general public comment. We're going to go ahead and move on to our meeting started over 20 minutes ago, ma'am. Where did you sign up? Your name? What is your name? Yeah, I was calling you about 10 minutes ago. Can you give me just a second, and can you please take a seat? Thank you. We called you 2 or 3 times. What are their names? Harvey Wasserman? Yeah. Do you want to come forward? And Myla Reason. What are the items? Items number 12? You have 1 minute each.
Thank you. I'm Harvey Wasserman. I have the KPFK California Solartopia show on Thursdays on 6:30, and our goal is to see the DWP divest itself of this unfortunate investment in the Palo Verde nuclear plants. They are a drain on all of us. They are inefficient, extremely dangerous, and creating huge amounts of radioactive waste. We need to go 100% solar in LA County as soon as possible. We have many square miles of rooftops that can accommodate solar panels. We need to begin manufacturing solar panels in Los Angeles so that we can become totally energy self-sufficient. Los Angeles County should become the world's first totally solar-powered megalopolis. We can do this well in advance of 2030. We need to get a bond issue going so that we can start manufacturing in LA County, creating tens of thousands of jobs. I am also involved in solar installing, and it is by far the cheapest, cleanest, and most job-producing source of electricity that we have.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker.
Thank you very much. I look for the DWP to do this as soon as possible.
Chair Martinez, I appreciate the opportunity, and I want want to say something more about Palo Verde. In 1980, when the city of Los Angeles became the spearhead in terms of investing a huge monetary investment in the nuclear power plant in Arizona, we thought that the federal government would take the high-level radioactive waste off of our hands. Well, it's many years later, and the federal government can't do it. We still don't have a way of isolating this lethal waste from the accessible environment. The Palo Verde nuclear power plant produces high-level radioactive waste at a greater rate than any other nuclear power plant in the United States with its 3 reactors. It evaporates 27,000 gallons of water every minute, in order to keep those reactors cooled from melting down. And that water goes into the jet stream, travels eastward out of the desert, and contributes to climate crisis. And it's irresponsible for the city of Los Angeles to continue to be a partner in the generation of high-level radioactive waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment on all items, including general public comment. Mr. Clerk, we're going to go ahead. I want to move items 1 through 5, items 17 and 21 on consent.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo.
Chair?
Yes?
I'd like to ask that we call special item 3 and 4 and just hear them together.
You want to hear items 3 and 4?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and approve the items I just mentioned. Did you get that, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, we did, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Cedillo seconded. Without objection, that will be the order. Did you want to take up items 3 and 4 together, Mr. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and read that into the record. Did you want to hear from staff on these items?
Yeah, I want to be able to ask a few questions.
Okay, let's go ahead and read items number 3 and 4 into the record, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Item number 3, DWP report, CAO report, relative to amendment number 3 to contract 4118 with Supplies Distributors Incorporated. And number 4, similar contract. Amendment number 2 to contract 238 with Taylor Communications Incorporated. You have staff from Department of Water and Power.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koretz. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Is this the same ink that bled through when we tried to use a higher percentage of recycled content paper for our customer bills? And why would we extend a contract, if that's so, for an ink that forces us to use virgin paper?
Hi, my name is Alina Cummings. I'm the Assistant Director of Information Systems at the Department of Water and Power. The contract that we are extending will allow us to change the ink to Dye Plus ink in near future. That's one of our plans, to test Dye Plus ink, which is different than the ink that we're using. And as soon as we have the contract amended, we are going to start testing that to change over the ink. The recycled paper content, the 10%, one of the reasons was the ink that was bleeding through. The other one is because we're using...
I can hear you. Could you speak a little more?
The other reason is because the the equipment that we're using requires 1,000-pound rolls of paper to be pulled up to the equipment and print the bills. And the tension on these machines is so strong that when the recycled content increases, makes the paper more brittle. And when we tested higher recycled content than 10%, it broke the paper, and it wasn't becoming, it was becoming a problem. We couldn't produce the bills. So there are several reasons why we have to use the 10% recycled. We are one of the only printers of bills using these mega rolls that are using any recycled content, because it's so difficult to do. But as far as the ink, we will be using a new technology ink, which is more environmentally friendly and will help us with bleed through as well.
And where does Taylor source its paper from? Because I know in the past we were sourcing paper from rainforests in Indonesia. Are we able to, through this new contract, to improve upon that?
I'm going to ask Anthony Ballou to address that paper source.
How you doing? I'm Anthony Ballou, Information Systems Operations Manager at LADWP. Can you repeat the question, please?
Where does Taylor source its paper from? Because we've had some very non-environmental sources in the past.
From what I understand, it's in Dallas, where they mill the paper. Is that your question, where it's being milled?
Where's the original source of the paper, the material?
The original source, where is it coming from?
Right, because previously they were coming from Indonesian rainforests.
Ooh, that I don't know. I've only been with DWP 2 years. I didn't even know that it was coming from there.
So, Council Member Louis Carr, Chief Information Technology for LAWP. We don't have that answer, but we will get back to you with a response as to where they're able to source their paper.
One of the things that I'd like to add is that they are the only manufacturer that are able to produce this paper for us. We have tried many, many different versions of this paper, and they're the only ones that are actually manufacturing this paper for us. That's 10% recycled. This paper usually does not have any recycled content. So after testing many, many times, many, many different brands, this was the only one that we could produce with 10% recycled, and they're manufacturing this specifically for us. That's why we're extending the contract, because it's so specific to us.
Right. If they're still cutting down rainforests to produce this paper, I'm not sure that's a positive trade-off for us. So if we could get that information, that would be appreciated.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all the questions you have, Mr. Kokorian? You don't have any questions? Is that all you have for these two items? Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move to approve items number 3 and 4. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that will be the order. Let's go ahead and take up items number 6 through 14, item 19 and 20. You want to read those into the record? After, you know what? Let's do it after we have the DWP presentation. Colleagues, we have a number of items related to DWP, including items related to their power portfolio, our pursuit for renewable energy, and how this reflects DWP's budget. So if we can have Mr. Wright come forward. Do you have anyone else with you?
I have a number in the audience who I'll pull up for questions if there are any.
Or maybe you want to bring them all up. Mr. Montage, for example, is he coming up? Is there anyone else with you that in case we have questions? Thank you, Mr. Wright. It's always a good thing when we have DWP leadership come to committee. I appreciate you being here. You know, I've worked to ensure that our pursuit of clean energy is done in a manner that recognizes our environmental justice communities, and I just want to make that very clear. I hope that you would agree that we need to find ways to address localized burdens in some of these neighborhoods that have bared these burdens for way too long. And whatever the city or DWP does, it has to be done in a manner where we respect the most disadvantaged and the most underserved ratepayers in our city. So I hope you would agree with that. So I want to make sure that we understand that moving forward. And in your presentation, I'm expecting DWP to update us on your broader efforts and initiatives towards a clean energy future, and what and bringing us a broader context of what that really means for us in each of these individual items that we're going to be taking up today. In doing so, I also expect that I want to hear on your commitment to doing so in instances of making sure that any DWP immediate action is consistent with our broader goals in the department, and ensuring that what are we doing for low-income renters, environmental justice neighborhoods, and what are we doing to support innovation. So I hope that's all part of your presentation, or we can at least ask questions about
Certainly.
all those different things. You want to go ahead and start?
Yes, I have a presentation which should cover much of what the various items moved together combined. So we want to talk about our power system and our historic goals. As you can see along the top, LADWP has usually surpassed California's renewable portfolio standard. You can see in 2016, California's is 25, and LADWP's or LA's is 30%, moving up to 2030 when it's 50% for California and 55% for LA, and then 65% in 2036. So we have spent over $1 billion in capital infrastructure and almost $200 million in operations between 2011 and 2017, and we're currently on target to reach these goals. So that's very important too. The next is a greenhouse gas emissions forecast, and this slide is kind of busy, but it's so important that I want to tell you, along the top there's a red line, and that's the 1990 emissions level, a red dotted line. At the bottom is another red dotted line with the dashes that are larger, which is the 2050 goal for California to be 80% below the 1990 emissions levels. And what you can see in the middle, I think the most important one is in 2026, LA will be 77% below the 1990 emission levels, or almost at the 2050 goal, almost 25 years earlier. So the real goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is being taken very seriously by LADWP, and we are very far ahead of the California requirements. We reached the 2030 level in 2016, so 14 years early in reduced greenhouse gas emission targets. So our resource mix is very much supporting reduced greenhouse gases in a very aggressive fashion. The next slide just summarizes a number of different council motions as it looked towards the 100% renewable energy study. And we have started the 100% study with a stakeholder group, and it's been meeting for about a year, and it's about a 2 to 3 year process to get to the entire final report with all the information. Some of the key study factors are that we need to maintain reliability, we need to look at our infrastructure, and that infrastructure not only includes the generation, but it includes the transmission investments, it includes the ones through cooling study, which I'll report in a little bit farther in the presentation, looks at the different types of clean energy resources, what the current technologies are and what anticipated technologies are in the development stage for the future. We're looking at energy storage, energy efficiency, demand response, because the best thing you can do is reduce the need for any energy, and so we have a number of programs and we're looking at implementing more. And then what's called the energy imbalance market, which would allow us to purchase renewable energy in an easier, faster, and less expensive fashion. Another one of the goals is to optimize the cost, to look at ratepayers and the local economy, and a prioritization of environmental justice neighborhoods. So here's a picture of the advisory group. Each advisory, there's a number of different members, and I'll show you the members in a moment because it's pretty impressive that is of all the stakeholders. And each member of the group has a primary and an alternate member, and they meet quarterly. They're looking at how to integrate everything, renewable generation, buildings, vehicles, data, people. It's not just going to be how can we get more energy resources. It's how everything factors in to the final 100% renewables and reducing demand. This is the group, and you can see a number of different organizations that are participating in this study and all the different types around the Energy Study Hub. In the upper right, you can see that NREL is essentially leading this process, the National Renewable Energy Labs, and they are the ones that are conducting this, the meetings and providing that independent information leadership and support as this moves forward. We have a wide range of experts, including those from the academic world and the different groups within the city to examine that pathway. Here's a timeline of the process. And you can see the green once through cooling study, again, will be a little farther down in the presentation, but you can see this process started in July of 2017 and will continue through July of 2020, and again will include all the information, all the engagement, and produce a very comprehensive report. And what are some of the things that are going to be necessary for that 100% green LA, reaching that goal? Which includes the electricity affordability and the decarbonization, and it's again that transmission and various kinds of storage, looking at the different seasonal needs and the needs of different years. So, we have some hot years, some cool years, and we've got to look at preparing for what are now called climate extremes, that different years are having more extremes extreme temperatures. Comprehensive planning is critical. We do have to include all of those components. We've got to look at existing technologies, and there's going to need to be new technologies as we look moving forward. We've got to be flexible, and again, we've got to reduce demand. This is kind of shows a number of different key points. One is LA is such a large city that we are going to need to bring energy in from across the western United States. Geographic diversity is very important for renewable energy. Sometimes the wind is blowing in one area and not another. Sometimes the sun is shining in one area and they're having a storm in another area. Those different stars, with the exception of the bottom one, which is LA, represent different energy hubs where we can import renewable energy and then bring them down those two main transmission lines right into the city. What interconnection requests are, the title aside, those are, when we issue an RFP, individuals respond with renewable energy projects or contracts to bring energy from the location to one of those energy hubs and down into LA. The most important part is in red, you can see the request. We have more requests than we do have capacity in each one of those areas. That means two things. One, there's a lot of renewable resources out there that can be imported into the city, but also as important is the cost impacts to customers. When there's more than we need, than we have the ability to transport, it means we can get the best price for our customers and keep rates low as we increase renewable energy. Economy-wide impact, economy-wide analysis. It's very important that we look at all the aspects of this. So we do have researchers looking at all the different aspects. So it's more than a technical study. We have USC and UCLA examining the impacts to the local economy, including job creation, investment costs, and how to improve our in-basin system. We look at the impacts on air quality and environmental justice. And so you can see we're using the Cal Enviro screen to look at the impacts and air quality and the various aspects of that in our own neighborhoods as we look towards the future and the import of renewable energy and construction of local renewable projects. Moving to the Once Through Cooling study. The Once Through Cooling study examines alternatives to repowering our coastal units. It is a third-party independent study. It looks at maintaining system reliability for the next 20 years, evaluates all non-emitting alternatives, but it does require a proven technology. We adopt and expand the IRP from last year or for 2 years ago, look at the environmental constraints, look at the costs, and that study will then provide an overall recommendation. We said it's an independent study, and as you can see, and we put this up here because it's important, Worley Parsons is the primary project manager, but they're interacting directly with NREL, who's also doing the 100% renewable study. So they are sharing the information because it's beneficial and important to the renewable study. So we want to make sure that that independent and objective analysis is provided to the 100% renewable group so they can provide better results. How they do it, again, kind of a busy slide, but the units that are currently planned for repowering are on the left. The capacity is along the middle of the top box. And then the study scenarios go through A through H. And what they do is they look, okay, what is an alternative that has all of these repowered? What's an alternative that has none of them repowered? What are a bunch of different alternatives that look at a selected group being repowered? And then how much would be retired? And so they go through that, and they look at different alternatives, as you can see, renewables, storage, demand and energy response, transmission, and a number of different alternatives and different components. And again, they look at proven technologies because this has to start very quickly. Through their methodology that they use is they go through this kind of funnel approach where they look at the resources. Is it technically feasible? Is there enough transmission? They do a system simulation, an operational. So they go through an entire process independently of each one of those scenarios and looks at how they would factor in to the demand of Los Angeles, again, over the next 20 years. For that portion of the 100% renewables and once through cooling, I've reached the end of the components. We have had much more in-depth presentations on that at the board meetings, and we can provide those if you would want those at a future meeting. However, that kind of gives a highlight of what's happening in the status of the 100% renewable and once through cooling. There was also a discussion on will we include the 100% renewable alternative in the 2018 IRP, and we absolutely are planning on doing that. We'll have greater information at the end of the 100% renewable study, but we can start including the 100% alternative in this 2018 IRP. Going through a couple of the other items, we are looking at reducing our reliance on natural gas and looking at various storage aspects. We have a 100 megawatt battery that we're installing and should be ready in about the next 2 years. We have some pilot sites. We have a fire station where we put in battery storage, we put in solar, and we're trying to see how we can utilize that in a 24/7 type of operation, but at a smaller location. We have about a half a dozen different battery pilots in process so that we can see and model how they work. And then, of course, we have this very large 100 megawatts is a very significant size, and we'll be implementing that again within the next couple of years and watching that. We're interacting and in discussions with LAPD to look at which potential facilities might work, and we're moving through that process for implementing solar. We're also looking at solar on some reservoir facilities, and we're again in process looking at not just one facilities, but a number of different facilities to see if there could be an option of putting floating solar on our reservoirs. And it helps with essentially providing a barrier from the sun. It's kind of a shade ball variation, not exact, but some variation of that. But looking at, again, where we can put solar and can we look at some innovation and ingenuity on how we look at where we place solar. I know there was a question on some environmental justice and some other alternatives. We are looking at improving our demand response programs and looking at assisting low-income customers and different neighborhoods with some targeted programs that we're considering in development.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? So correct?
Yeah, and we're doing so many items, so hopefully I won't have a million questions and comments as we go through. First of all, from an environmental justice point of view, how will the proposed IPP repowering impact our local gas plants and the ones through cooling studies? Do we think, before we've actually done the studies, do we have a sense that we can get away from repowering Scattergood, Haynes, and the harbor?
Okay. Since you brought up the IPP repowering, which is on our next board agenda, if I could go through several different components of that and answer your question at the same time, would that be okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Chair.
Again, at LADWP, we're looking at an aggressive decarbonization, how we can increase our renewable portfolio levels, and looking at customer equity, local priorities, job creation, and focusing also on disadvantaged communities and environmental justice areas. There is a plan on the agenda at the next board meeting to request a reduction in the repowering, and that reduction would allow us to increase our renewable portfolio target by 5% starting in 2025. So it would go from the plan of 2050. Would you go through to the very first slide so we can show them that? In 2025, we have 50% renewable target, and this would take us to 55 at that point. In 2030, we have 55% renewable target. This would take us to 60%, and it would increase us from 65 to 70% in 2036. And that's done through a number of different approaches. We would be looking at putting about 1,100 megawatts along the transmission line between the Delta hub. IPP is in Delta, Utah, and that's one of those hubs I showed earlier when we can import renewable resources. We look at locating about 1,100 megawatts, which is about 1/6 of our peak load, to put it in perspective. Either tying into the Delta hub or along the transmission line between Delta, Utah and Victorville, where we get the power from, to significantly increase the amount of renewables and, again, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase our portfolio of renewables by 5% within 7 years. We do that by putting in smaller units that would not be baseload units. We take about 30% of the planned repowering away from 1,200 down to 840 megawatts. We'd ensure those plants could be converted as new technology is developed to use hydrogen or any other sort of fuel that would be a renewable or better for the environment, and we'd allow that conversion to take place. Some of them are as easy as just replacing nozzles, which right now provide the fuel, and we could trade that out to hydrogen. We'd make the financing so those could be taken offline more quickly. We'd add $100 million of money over the next 5 years in energy efficiency and conservation, mostly for multifamily housing that's occupied by low-income renters. And we'd look at that with appliances, light bulbs, but most importantly, insulation. And most importantly on that, insulation in pre-1978 units, so that we could assist in insulating LA and then reducing greenhouse gas emissions, not just from air conditioning or utilization from electricity, but that helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions from natural gas heating. So we'd initially target those in green up communities of Pacoima, Boyle Heights, and Wilmington, but over time expand them. I'd really like to see insulation rebates across the board be improved, and I've directed staff to do that. It is the least cost, highest benefit you can have to reduce energy bills for all customers, but it's especially important for low-income customers. We'd be looking at putting in virtual net metering in 2019 and as a pilot project, and then two other things would be looking at what's called compressed air energy storage, a very large storage unit in Delta, Utah that could store some of our excess power. And then we'd also be looking at how the IPP project can reduce the in-basin repowering. At this point, I can't tell you it will, and it will reduce this plant, that plant, or all plants, but what I can tell you, with the import of that natural gas and renewables along that transmission line, if we didn't have that, we would have to increase the amount of operations of those once-through cooling generating units. So by doing this process, it helps reduce the need for the size of those units. Again, we have to really go through that study to see the exact results of that, and that should be finished, the once-through cooling study, by the end of this end of this calendar year.
So one thing I want to be clear on with the deal we're negotiating for the 840 megawatts.
Yes, sir.
Part of that is that as newer technologies emerge or are perfected, if we get the agreement of our partners, that we're able to shut down these gas plants at some point.
Yes, shut them down or convert them to environmentally renewable resource like a hydrogen. But yes.
Good. And verbally at meetings for years, I've been asking DWP to model 100% renewable. And I think their resistance was always based on the fact that it would show a very high cost. But I think unless we actually map it out, we really won't know how high that cost will be. And we also might find with the great engineering brains we have in DWP that we might find places to save millions of dollars in what those costs might be to the naked eye. And also we might save some years as well, which, as we know, as the climate change clock is ticking ominously, I should say, that we need to save every year that we can. So I'm hoping we will finally do this and not be afraid of whatever number it shows. I think we have to at least establish that baseline to move forward.
I have to say, as a general manager, I can't thank the committee and the council enough for directing the 100% model, because I completely agree with what you said. Until we have it on paper, until we look at what the costs are, then it's all just talk. Putting this down, it allows then for debate, discussion of real numbers, real facts, real research. And I'm proud to be with a city that is, I think, the first in the nation to do this. And we're committed to modeling this. And again, moving through the 100% renewable study over the next several years, that will give us an even greater detail amount of research, and then every integrated resource plan, I'm hoping to see costs come down and us be able to get there faster.
And also, as we're looking at environmental justice and diversity, I wonder if we could have the DWP take a look at the Neighborhood Council MOU Committee. It advocates as if it's representative of all the neighborhoods in the neighborhood council system, and I'd like a report back on the breakdown of its membership by age, race, ethnicity, economic status, and compare that to the city as a whole. And if, in fact, it's not as diverse as it could be, I wonder if we could get some suggestions as to how to improve that.
Certainly.
Well, we'll do.
And I think I've asked enough questions for a while, so I'll let other members do some, and then I'll ask a couple more.
Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for the presentation. I think it's always good to be reminded of how much progress we've made, actually, as we plan and look forward to the progress that we're still expecting DWP to make in the future. And I want to thank all the folks who came down, particularly on item number 12, many of whom are people that I've been working with, and many of us have been working with for many, many years on renewable energy. And I appreciated your last comments about the council's role in instructing DWP to move to the 100% model. And I just want to take one step back from our discussion about this motion for a little broader context, because I think there may be some misunderstanding about what we're currently doing. Right now, the DWP is doing more to plan for and prepare for a 100% renewable future than any other utility of any major city in the United States of America. There isn't even a close second. The signs that say study 100% renewable energy, we have been doing that for the last 2 years. In fact, we are now at the point, thanks to the efforts that this council's made and that the DWP vigorously embraced, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory is right now creating a modeling simulator specifically for the DWP that will allow every imaginable scenario of combination of renewable fuel sources that will stress test our ability to do this, that will take into account the limitations that we have as a result of grid reliability needs and intermittency needs characteristics. All of the things that we need to figure out in order to make 100% work are right now going to be modeled by the most important renewable energy laboratory probably in the world. We are going to be able to find every conceivable barrier to getting to 100% and address it through this modeling effort. So today, without any further action of this council, with the work that the NREL is doing with DWP, we are already doing a vastly more thorough analysis of a 100% renewable future than could ever be done in any IRP. So I don't see any harm in moving forward with, and I appreciate your acknowledgement that we are going to be embracing the 100% modeling in the next IRP, and I would expect that you would do that whether we asked you to or not, because you're already embarking on that mission. So I see no harm in doing that, but let no one misunderstand. We are far, far ahead of that process already, and I expect that that progress will continue. But I want to say, again, just for context, about a dozen years ago, I started working as a member of the State Assembly on California's 33% RPS mandate. And so it doesn't seem like that long ago when 33% seemed like an almost unattainable goal. It seemed like something that people, literally people scoffed at. Mr. Kretz will remember this experience, I'm sure, and Mr. Cedillo in the legislature as well, where people thought, we can never get to 33%. It'll be so expensive and rates are going to go through the roof. And it was just, you wouldn't have believed the pushback. But that's why the approach that I took as the author of AB 64, which created that 33% mandate, passed through the legislature, unfortunately was vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger, but it did lay the foundation for what Jerry Brown did the very next year when he took over. What we did in that is not just limit ourselves to a goal and a date to meet the goal, but rather saying, what do we have to do to achieve it? Because we can say whatever number and date we want. I mean, it's great for politicians to do that, to say, well, you know, why don't we just get to 100% renewable by next year? Let's just do it. That's easy for us to say. But when the engineers have to sit down and make that real, that's the hard part. And when we have to figure out how much that's going to cost and how we're going to pay for it and how much we're going to put on ratepayers and how we have to plan for building the transmission and what the environmental trade-offs are. Somebody was talking about 100% solar. Great. Solar's an intermittent resource. You have to have vast amounts of storage. The only storage that we have, you know, has its own environmental consequences as well. We got to think about all that. You want to go to add more wind? Great, we'll do that, but then you have to think of the environmental consequences of building more utility-scale wind. You want to have utility-scale solar? That has environmental consequences for open spaces and land. All of those things are their job and our job to actually figure out in order to not be hypocrites who just say, yeah, 100%, and then not take the hard steps of making that real. So I don't mean to be Debbie Downer on this. What I mean to say is we are doing this. We are going to get there. We are already embarking on that path. But the path has to be one. If this is going to be anything other than just happy talk, the path has to be getting down to the brass tacks of laying out a map for how to get there, a specific problem anticipating blueprint for how we make this real. And what I saw, somebody was saying, well, you know, the stakeholder mix, you know, is not right or something of this. Every environmental group, major environmental group, is part of this working group, right? And participating, have been from the beginning as stakeholders. And what I've seen in that room is a uniform commitment to this goal across all of the stakeholder groups. And, you know, I think it's been inspiring to see what the stakeholders have done in coming together in building consensus about how we achieve this monumentally important and monumentally challenging goal. And it's that work that convinces me that we are going to achieve this. And without that work, we could not achieve it. So by all means, I'm pleased that this is going to go forward in the IRP. I'm pleased with the progress that we've made. But I just want everybody to understand, with or without any further action of the council, this goal is moving forward and it is going to be achieved. Would you not agree, Mr. Wright? Let me just get your commitment to this on the record as well.
Yes, I agree. It's so exciting. It's going to give us that study, the first basically leading city in the nation. It's exciting. It's exciting to be here and work on it.
That's all I have.
Down, okay. Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And achieving 100% renewable, sometimes it's one project at a time. And so I just want to focus in on item 14 for just a moment, and that is in relation to the new Northeast Division station that was dedicated a couple of years ago. And I know that when the police facilities group came into public safety and they reported on RFP for the new parking structure that has been funded, and I just want to, I know that DWP has been meeting with the LAPD. Oh, there we go. And just want to see how those conversations are going in terms of these pilot photovoltaic projects for parking lots and shade structures, et cetera. A lot of rooftops on city facilities, and was just wondering, well, I want to first of all make sure that we can pioneer that at Northeast Division with this new parking structure that's going to be built, and then just see what the latest is in general with that initiative.
Thank you. I've got the solar experts up here at the table who'll take that question.
Sure. I'll start and then I'll hand it off to Tom. My name is Jason Rondo. I'm the manager of strategic development initiatives at LA DWP. And the solar development group is within my organization. And for the last several months, we've been working with LAPD to help identify sites, look at the different options that we have for installing solar. There's, solar might all look the same on rooftops, but there's a few different contractual arrangements that we could possibly do. I think to date we've looked at about 6 different sites, and every department has different goals. One of our key goals is to get renewable energy credit, right? So behind the meter solar is very, very important for a lot of reasons, but it may not get us the same renewable credit that we need to achieve higher levels of renewable goals. So that's, from DWP's perspective, a big key. Other departments might say, well, we like solar for shade purposes, or we want solar for reducing energy. And so us and LAPD have been working very closely together to try to identify ways that we can both achieve those goals. So I think I'll leave it there and let Tom jump in.
We have been working together, and we are looking at basically the pilot project that was done on the MOA with the fire department between WP as a model for moving forward. There's currently funding that was placed in the budget for 4 projects that we are in discussion with the mayor's office and with DWP about looking at a hybrid system, basically, that would put rooftop solar on the police stations that would feed the energy demand in the building while turning over the parking lots to DWP to build a structure that would meet their need to generate a specific amount of clean energy within the city limits. So far, that looks like the best way forward and the most feasible and the most beneficial to the city as a family.
Mm-hmm. And two main components are that LAPD is experimenting with the electric fleet, right? Not for emergency yet, but as soon as the mileage capability improves. So it would seem to me that it would be more cost effective to bake that into a project so that it's built with solar capability, so that in the police force of the future, you have a parking structure where the cars charge for a few hours, and they get up to 500 miles per charge, and we actually use them as squad cars, and they're all electric from power generated right on site. So those are the kinds of ways that I would like to think, especially with new facilities, where you can design the infrastructure for a future 100% renewable existence in public facilities, especially with this, like I mentioned, this pilot project for the electric administrative fleet for all practical purposes for now. But someday, I think in the not too distant future, we could be looking at all electric squad cars too, from energy generated on site.
And in those coordination and planning meetings with LAPD, LADWP's electric vehicle group is included in that. So whatever package that we come to propose at one or more stations, EVs will absolutely be a consideration for that.
And Tom, isn't the RFP out for Northeast for the parking structure, or soon to be?
Yes, sir. We're waiting for the bids to come back.
Okay. I mean, it's an opportunity, I think, whether it's that one or any other future new facility, to incorporate that as part of an RFP, a photovoltaic system.
There is a requirement in the RFP that the facility has to be designed to accept a solar canopy on the parking structure.
Okay, terrific. And I'm not confined to just LADWP, but all city facilities. I think that's the larger conversation moving into the future, so that we can actually build into our future infrastructure 100% renewable where power is generated on site.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We are also in the process of working with General Services on the construction of a new property division warehouse, and a solar component is required in that project as well.
Terrific. Maybe that'll become the standard operating procedure for all new facilities.
It should.
Yeah.
That it?
Yeah.
Back to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just relating to Mr. O'Farrell's question, taking a step back a little bit and 30,000-foot level. One thing that I feel we haven't been nearly aggressive enough about in renewable generation has been distributed solar generation on public rooftops. And we've had this conversation before, particularly with schools, which are peak users and only are using power part of the year anyway. This seems to me a tremendous untapped potential resource, not only our police stations and our public buildings, but the school buildings as well. And can you talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are as to why we don't have photovoltaic on, or even passive solar on every school roof in Los Angeles already?
I appreciate you using the challenge, kind of some of the challenges. And it isn't just in LA or LA USD or LAGWP. It tends to be all utilities. School districts have very limited funding and very distinct goals. Cities tend to have a little more funding, but distinct goals. It is negotiating with us and the school districts and trying to make those goals complementary tends to be really difficult. We do speak with the schools, we talk with them. They have goals we try to meet. It just seems that when we negotiate with school districts, it just takes longer. We'll get to the goal, we'll get there. It just takes a longer period of time. And we also then need to be looking at, okay, what school's going to be re-roofed? Let's talk about the roof structure, because you don't put solar on an old roof. And let's create that kind of timeline. And again, we speak with them. It just, I'll just tell you, it's probably the most challenging partner to negotiate with and talk to. I don't know if you've had any additional meetings or discussions, but it's a goal. It's ongoing. It's very difficult.
Yeah, the only thing I would add in terms of schools is to date, we've had a solar incentive program in place in some form or another since 1999, and that mandate ended at the end of 2016, and we kept that program going. We've invested tens of millions of dollars to help LAUSD achieve some of their solar goals, and we've actually reignited discussions with them just focused on solar to find out, what can we do more? Can we do different types of solar? Can we look at other opportunities for them to generate revenue and things like that. So in terms of us coming to the table and trying to play a role in guiding them, I think is part of it. The other part of it is exactly what was just mentioned, which is challenges around funding and that sort of thing. So we've looked at creative ways like trying to make incentives available earlier on in terms of purchasing requirements, kind of making those a little bit more streamlined for them in terms of showing proof that they're advancing on projects so that they can get funding. So we're continuing to work with them there. In terms of all city facilities, historically we've done a handful of LADWP funded solar on a number of city facilities, and we're starting those discussions up not just with LAPD but with Rec and Parks. We spent a significant amount of time to try to do a mix of a solar and storage project at some of their critical facilities. We're trying to look at facilities that might also be used as cooling centers or have other dual purposes for resiliency aspects. If we're able to find, and I think the word hybrid was used before, and again to emphasize a way that these facilities can save money, but DWP and the city can get the renewable credit. If we can find a hybrid model that works and is financially viable, we absolutely would like to scale that out, but we're trying to look at that now with LAPD and Rec and Parks. And as those projects progress and as the financing of that works out, it very much could unlock potential for other projects.
It's frustrating with the schools since LAUSD just completed the biggest school construction program in the history of America a few years ago, and had more of that been integrated into that construction program, today and every year for the next generation, there would have been enormous savings in the operating funds of LAUSD, which could have been put into teachers and books and other things by a little bit, spending a little bit more in the on the facility side. So, and we would have been that much closer to meeting our renewable energy goals. So, I recognize that, you know, cross-jurisdictional negotiations are always tough, but I just really think this is the biggest area of untapped potential that we have in Basin is continues to be school rooftops, and I just want to put that flag out there and hope that you continue to try to push through those barriers.
Thank you.
Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, follow up on that also, if there's a less will than we would like on the part of LAUSD, it may be because you're just dealing with the bureaucracy, and it's possible that council members that have contacts with school board members could try to deal with it policymaker to policymaker and help encourage that as well. So
thank you.
Maybe those of us who are interested in participating in that can work with you on trying to move that forward. And I would certainly offer, as someone that's pretty close to a number of the board members, to make those contacts and have those discussions.
Thank you.
I don't want to defend the district, even though I served there for 4 years, but I served during some very trying times when you had $2 billion worth of public funds taken from LAUSD, so I can tell you that this was probably not a priority based on the other issues that we had to grapple with. But I heard you both, and I think it's a good idea to reach out again, see where they're at. But if I'm reading the headlines correctly, they're headed towards financial difficulties one more time. So, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I just want to say one more thing, Mr. Wright. I know you hear me say this over and over again, but sometimes when I hear the presentations and I hear about global warming and 100% renewables, I have to admit that sometimes it just feels like neighborhoods like the ones I represent certainly are not, sometimes don't feel like they're the focus when it comes to the fight against global warming and climate change. It just feels that way. And how can we talk about global warming without addressing some of the local burdens, like the local burdens that my constituent face or Mr. Cedillo face? It's hard to comprehend how we can get to these conversations. And also, who drives our decision-making process? Is it the people who have the luxury of being the loudest in the room, or are we committed to making sure that our decisions are driven by making sure that we can make amends with the communities that have been dealing with this overconcentration of pollutants and so on and so forth? So I know you've heard me say this before, but that has to be our mandate if we want to get this right.
Yes.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Koretz?
I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Okay, I thought you were done.
No, I just was following up on his question about the schools, so I have a couple more, if you don't mind. What's the age of our other natural gas plant, the Apex plant? Is it close to reaching its end of life, and could the gas plant in Utah that we're talking about investing in help cover that and put that one to bed?
It's about a decade old. Don't know the exact year it's placed in service, but it's about 10 years old, so it's not towards the end of its life.
What's the chance of the Utah plant making us less reliant on that one and eliminating that one?
I'm going to have to look at the details of that. I don't have the answer right at this moment, but I will.
And also, I know the Utah plant allows us access to a transmission line so that we can use renewably sourced electricity from Utah as well. Do we have any commitment of those resources, or are we in active negotiations for any of those resources along the transmission line?
We are absolutely in active negotiations for resources. We are in a little bit of a pause. for us to know which size unit is going to get approved, but that's just a very brief pause, if you will. After next Tuesday, we should have a better knowledge of the exact size of the final power plant and the amount of capacity on that transmission line. Should the reduction in the power plant be approved, we'll be looking at getting about an equal number of renewable resources and natural gas resources of our share coming down that line by 2025. And again, we've got 5,000 megawatts of interconnection requests with about 2,000 megawatts of need over the next 10 years or so. So we've got a lot of different renewable projects and a number of different vendors that we're discussing with, so we can get as many renewables as we can use and get it at the best price and then transmit it down that STS transmission line.
And are there protections that will be in place for water and for from a climate change point of view from the gas production wells, since most of them tend to leak methane? How do we be sure that we're not leaking methane as well?
So we'll be setting out an RFP for gas supply in 2019, and anybody who responds to that will have to adhere to all of the regulations surrounding gas and gas well fields that the Federal Energy, FERC, who provides our federal rules and regulations, also oversees the natural gas area too. So they will at a minimum have to meet all of those FERC regulations.
But how will there be any way that we can monitor that so we make sure we don't have sources of leaks that are often present in natural gas wells?
We'll look at the ability to include that in an RFP.
And I know DWP has testified before that we don't get any gas from fracking. Will we be able to be sure that that's the case in the gas we generate for this plant?
We'll put that into our RFP, and we'll discuss that as part of the RFP process, yes.
All right, thank you.
Is that it? Any other questions? Mr. Cedillo, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
No, you're good. All right, thank you very much for this discussion. Now that we have the bigger picture understanding, I'm going to go ahead and take action on some of the following items. Mr. Prieto, can you please read item number 6 into the record?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Item number 6, DWP CEO reports relative to amending the administrative code in connection with wholesale energy transactions.
Okay, go ahead and move for approval. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, that will be the order. Let's go ahead and continue items 7 and 12 for 30 days. Any objections? That will be the order. Items number 8, 9 are DWP's budget for fiscal year 18 and 19. Let's go ahead and notify those items. Items 10, 11, 13, 14, and 19 were all responded to during the discussion. So let's go ahead and notify DWP's report. And last is go ahead and adopt items number 12, Mr. Englander's motion. Any objections to any of that? I said let's continue items 7 and 12 for 30 days. I said that previously.
What was the last one? She said 12.
20. 20?
You misspoke.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I said let's go ahead and adopt items number 20, Mr. Englander's motion.
Oh, number 20. Number 20. Okay.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. So without objections, that will be the order. Let's go ahead and take up items related to the Argo project, which are items number 15 and 16. Staff, are you here?
Here's that page.
Mr. Karagani, how are you?
Thank you.
So at our last meeting, you all updated us on the Argo project, and we asked you to come back to transmit the necessary reports for this committee's consideration. Has this project resulted in any savings from I think that was a conversation we left off on.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Shuram Karagani, LA Sanitation. Yes, based on your direction, we met with LAWA and we negotiated, and they have agreed to pay 50% of the increased cost, which would provide enough funding for the project to move forward.
Okay, members, are there any questions for items number 15 or 16?
One quick question on 15.
Go ahead.
Will this project have any impact on the endangered El Segundo blue butterfly? I don't know the exact
The
location.
what butterfly?
The El Segundo blue butterfly.
Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports.
Is that the only butterfly you care about, Mr. Correct?
It is
What
not-
about the rest?
What about other butterflies?
What
It is
about
not,
other
but it is the only one that
And it's
exists.
called El Segundo blue butterfly?
It is the only one that exists in the world, and only in El Segundo.
And you would know that. Love it.
Sadly, it's
All right, you,
We have a habitat set up in a different part of the airport property out in the West Dunes. This is not in that. This is a different part of the property.
Thank you.
so has there been an increase from LAWA, has there been a LAWA contribution, an increase in the contribution towards this project?
Yes.
Do we have a number?
The number the CEO would provide.
Yes, the number is 5.7 million.
Can you repeat that again?
Let me double check. The number is around approximately $5.2 million increase from the last.
There's an increase of $5.2 million from LAWA towards this project?
Yes, that's
Since
correct.
last
Since
time
the
we
last
spoke,
meeting.
okay.
That's correct.
The total contribution now is 14.77 million
But there's an additional 5.2 from LAWA to this project,
since the
okay?
last time we were here.
Well, thank you very much for all your efforts in addressing the concerns that were previously raised. I appreciate you coming back. Let's go ahead and take the following action. Are there any other questions on these two items? Did you want to add something?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yes. Selena Kerr with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. Could we amend recommendation number 1 to account for the increase in contribution? We wanted to.
So you want to amend recommendation 1 under what item, 15?
16. Under
16, I have that here.
Oh, okay.
Is it, let's go ahead and, for item 15, let's go ahead and adopt the recommendations and the CEO and LAWA report. And under item 16, let's adopt the CEO recommendations and amend to reflect the corrected amount of $7 million, $7.9 is what I have
Yes,
here. Okay.
Approximately.
Approximately. Okay, is that what you wanted me to
Yes,
reflect?
and also we wanted to increase the actual total project budget for the Argo project from 30 million to 52.9 million approximately.
Okay, can the record reflect that, which you just mentioned?
Yes, it can.
Okay. Are there any objections? Okay, that will be, okay, that's adopted. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming back, guys. Let's go ahead and take up item 18, Stormwater Initiative.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Your sanitation report relative to motion Martinez, Weston, Rodriguez, Harris, Dawson, Price, relative to instructing the Department of Water and Power and sanitation report on the Safe Clean Water Program in the city. This matter was continued from your meeting on June 5th.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So in our last meeting, we provided you the information, and we've received input from your committee and taken the information. We actually provided comments to LA County, which we've been working with them for the last 2 weeks. We appreciate all their work, and I know the representatives are here. Just to give you quickly what has been has changed since then is regarding the issue about LA County flood control and playing a bigger role in addressing flooding and safety in our waterways. They've committed in a letter to us, to the Bureau of Sanitation, that they will be partnering on all these projects through the flood control, independent of the measure. And they will conduct educational programs in the vicinity of waterways, especially the Bacoma Wash, where we had some issues, but they're going to be working with us on addressing flooding in critical areas and prioritizing those. So those are independent from that. We appreciate their communication and writing on that matter. Also, as we discussed here, the credit program, as we've discussed with you last time, there was a concern that we had. We think developments and businesses and residences that implement stormwater measures on site to capture stormwater should get a credit. It should not be exclusive to large property owners. Initially, we had a 50-acre threshold. Based on your feedback and comments to the county, that has been removed as of last night, and we received last night a revised credit program that basically has no threshold, and anybody can qualify if they're managing runoff on site, which is greatly so. Your input has been integrated. The credit percentage has been increased from 65% to 75%, which we believe is adequate, since a lot of the runoff also comes from public streets, public properties. It's about 35% of the runoff comes from public streets. So we think a contribution up to 35% is reasonable, so they gave credit of 75%, which we believe is a great progress. We continue to work with the county on some of these issues, but I think, to me, timing is of the essence. We know that we have this is a water quality measure. I want to keep stressing this is a water quality measure, as I mentioned to our partners across the city. However, we want to make the right thing. We want to implement water quality projects and measures that provide us the maximum benefit. And those are critical, because you want to address issues at the same time, not do silo-type projects. So if we can address water quality while addressing flooding, which I think is very critical to our residents and our businesses, we want to do that. If it's addressing water supply and replenishing groundwater, and putting water back in the ground or reusing it, we want to do that. If it's greening communities and making our communities a better place to live and walk and enjoy, let's make it happen. So we want to do the maximum out of these projects so we can do water quality, which is the #1 mandate that we're pushing for, and we believe what we have before you and we presented to you last time is adequate to allow us for compliance. However, we want to maximize the benefit, the return on the investment, and it's a great business decision. We want to treat this as a business. We want to get the maximum for the community with focus, with priority for disadvantaged communities. That's something that we're committing to, the county is committing to. So your input is greatly appreciated by all of us, and the message has been heard clearly by your staff, but also by the county. And we appreciate their comment that they gave to us and their response. And we continue working with the businesses. We're working very hard. I just came in from meetings with BizFed and others. We continue to work with the LA Chamber of Commerce. And that's something we want to continue dialogue. We're asking all of them to continue working with the county and the city on addressing the concerns and the issues. But we believe the credit program is a huge change that allows everybody to be incentivized so you can manage runoff and reduce your tax by doing the right thing, which I think is a great message for everyone. We're very happy with the progress, and I think the city, it's because of the urgency and what we're dealing with, we need to move forward as quickly as possible. And the hearing with the Board of Supervisors to consider this measure has been scheduled for July 10th.
That's when the board is going to take a vote?
Yes.
I thought they had to do it before July 1st.
I believe it was June 26th, but I think time-wise, I think
26th, yeah, you're right.
initially June 26th, but now they moved to July 10th to allow for more input. I believe still from a legal ability to put it on the vote and the ballot, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Marty?
No, only you had some questions last time about the groundwater program and what we're doing with our groundwater contamination cleanup. We have some slides to show if you're interested in hearing from the folks working on that. DeLon Kwan and Art Castro will give a little update on where we are with our groundwater cleanup program. Since, as we're aware, if we're going to put the water in the ground from the storm water, we've got to clean up the basins to be able to get it out and make drinking water out of it. So they'll let you know what we're doing with this, and it is a very critical part of our local water resource program.
Okay, good afternoon. So DeLon Kwan, Manager of Resource Development. I also have here Mr. Art Castro. He oversees the watershed management program, so he's overseeing some of the construction projects that we're going to talk about here. So one of the questions that you had asked at the last meeting was a follow-up to the efforts that we have implemented to maximize replenishment that goes back into the aquifer to help with the aquifer health. And so we just want to give you a quick overview. We had the opportunity to come talk to you before on our local projects goals going forward in order to meet the mayor's goal. So one of the elements that's critical to our future local projects was the stormwater capture element of that program. So we completed the Stormwater Capture Master Plan document back in 2015, and that identified some of the potential opportunities that we have going forward on the large centralized projects as well as the small distributed type capture projects. So a lot of the prioritization of those stormwater capture projects is based on geophysical characteristics in the groundwater basin that is conducive to infiltration capability. So you see here a map of the area. So in the 3 categories in terms of the ability to infiltrate water back into the groundwater basin, we have identified 3 categories. The green is the most conducive type projects areas. You can see the green and the yellow are the most high priority, medium priority type projects. So you see those located in the upper part of the service area, and it's primarily in the San Fernando Valley area, overlaying over the San Fernando groundwater basin.
I'm sorry, if you can go back. In the East Valley, the line of black markings there, are those contamination plumes? There's a number of black splotches all over unless it's just my vision.
No, I see them too.
No, they should not reference it. This is strictly geophysical map.
Yeah, they're not plumes.
I think it was
not a plume map at all.
You're right. I think it was just not color coded those areas.
Places where there wasn't a color assigned. Correct. Correct. That's a relief.
That's your district.
Yeah.
So the 2 type of main capture type projects you see and you've heard before, the large centralized projects which are on the left, these are large flood control projects that we partner with the LA County flood control districts to capture and infiltrate into the spreading basin. The spreading basin there on the lower left, you see there, I believe that's Hanson?
That's Tahunga.
Tahunga. And then on the right side are the more smaller level neighborhood type distributed projects. You see the dry wells on the upper left, the rain capture water cisterns, and then the more neighborhood level types, green streets, and then the infiltration galleries that capture a large amount of water and then slowly allow it to be recharged back into the groundwater. So over the last 8 years, we've completed about 17 projects, total combined increased capture capacity of about 12,000 acre feet. We've invested about $56 million, and I'm going to have Art Castro kind of talk about some of the specific projects more in detail that we've completed, as well as those that we got planned.
Sure. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Art Castro, like Delon mentioned, Water Resources. So here are some examples of our completed partners with the partnerships with Rec and Parks, LA Sand, LA County Flood Control District, so on and so forth. But I'll get into those partnerships later. On the top hand, you see Carranza Park. This is a park in northeast LA. It captures stormwater from the neighboring tributary area and down into these cisterns and stormwater galleries. Down in the bottom is Hanson Spreading Grounds, which is a partnership with the LA County Flood Control District. It's right in the northeast San Fernando Valley, and this is one of our major centralized projects that we're collaborating with them. On the lower right-hand side, these are our distributed projects, and these are dry wells located along the street. If you don't know what it is, you drive right by there. It's essentially a French drain, a bottomless drain that collects rainwater and puts down into the aquifers. And it's both for water quality, water supply, and flood mitigation benefits. Madam Martinez, I know this project is near and dear to your heart. It's down the street.
Down the street from my house.
I know. So this is our Tahunga Spreading Grounds project. It's one of our biggest stormwater capture projects. It's currently $45 million. So we broke ground in 2016. It's currently 50% in construction right now. We are consolidating and deepening basins to increase stormwater capture from 8,000 acre feet to 16,000 acre feet. So that number equates to roughly 48,000 households per year. And that's in an average rain yearfall. So during a wet year, those numbers are going to be a lot higher.
That's great.
Okay, so this is one of the projects that was conceptualized based on the latest wet year that we have. We had tons of amounts of water from Northern California, which we almost had nowhere to impound it, nowhere to store it. So we looked back in our maps and figured out that this Maclay Highline actually delivered water from the Owens into the Pacoma Spreading Grounds way back. This hasn't been used for years, but DWP recently refurbished. Just in case there was another wet year, we had the capacity to move that water over to the Pacoma Spraying Grounds and eventually use it for dry years to come.
So when was the last time we used that?
It was back in before 86 when the LA filtration plant came online. So after the filtration plant came online, we were treating all the
water?
LA supplies that
I used it once since then, but I can't remember the years in the 90s, but yeah. There's a great reuse of existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
So these are our partnerships with the LA City's Public Works. They include Wasserman, Elmer Avenue, Lower Canyon, Lancashire, Green Street, Van Nuys Green Streets. And these projects are great because they not only supply the city with water as a component, but also have water quality, flood mitigation, and they have community improvements, which is a big community environmental justice we could also provide the citizens of the city. This is one of the potential major programs that we want to endeavor with the Rec and Parks, as well as sanitation. This is a string of 10 parks that are located along the 170 freeway. And coincidentally, there's a county storm drain that runs right adjacent to it. So what we envision is we capture the tributary, not only the street runoff, but we could also divert water from that county storm drain. So we foresee that Caltrans might be a funding partner, LA County might be a founding partner, and we're also looking to Prop 1 and Prop 68 as another funding mechanism for this program. We're very excited about this program. We just met with Rec and Parks, and we see that there's benefits on many facets for each department. These are our partnerships with the LA County Flood Control District. Like Delon mentioned, these projects are very large in nature. They usually consist of dams and spraying grounds. So these are more for flood protection than anything else. So the county's task is to protect the population from floods. So they impound that at their dams and at their spraying grounds, and this is where DWP takes advantage of that for water supply.
So to offset some of these project costs, we are pursuing state funding. So Art mentioned Prop 68. We have pursued through Prop 50 and Prop 84 earning grants for stormwater capture projects. For the remediation projects, you're aware we are pursuing Prop 1 money for the remediation efforts. To date, we've gotten something in the order of $40-something million and executed Prop 1 money for the remediation projects. The industrial stormwater rebate program that was briefly mentioned at the last meeting, where we are looking to potentially incentivize for the water supply benefits for industrial permit holders to capture, treat, and help recharge. We've identified some 500 permit holders in certain areas, potential there for about 4,000 acre-feet yield. So over the next 5 years, we potentially might have up to 100 participants, potentially costing about $8 million for this 4,000 acre-foot potential yield. And this next to last slide, we want to show you kind of our progress today toward meeting the mayor's 150,000 acre-feet of stormwater capture capacity goal by the year 2035. You can see back in 2014, when the mayor's executive directive number 5 came out, we were roughly about 64,000 acre-feet in built capacity. As of this year, 2018, we've increased that by about 1,300 acre-feet. We're currently at about 65,000 acre-feet capacity, capture capacity. Over the next 5 years, we plan to increase that by another 30,000 through investments in additional stormwater capture projects. Here is our 5-year projection. So we've got roughly about 19 projects in centralized capture projects and 18 distributed type projects. Total expenditure over this 5-year, we're anticipating roughly about $557 million. So hopefully we see this continued movement. We're going to continue to try to make progress towards advancing the stormwater capture goals, and that'll go towards helping the mayor's, meeting the mayor's target, and then helping us get off less imported purchases from MWD. Be happy to answer any questions.
So I think what you saw here, I think at the critical point is the value of leveraging resources. is if we can leverage project and leverage resources, we can get the biggest bang for the buck. And this is really what our residents want us to see. That $557 million you're looking at is not coming out of the stormwater fee. That's going to be leveraging the money that we're going to be collecting and building projects. So to me, it's going to address flooding, water quality, water supply, but this measure on the safe, clean water is about water quality and compliance, but really being smart how we do it and leveraging with partners like Water and Power, partners like Rec and Parks, the county, to do the right thing and build projects that can improve our communities and make our city resilient and sustainable.
So, members, before I take questions, I'm going to embarrass Mr. Castro a little bit. He grew up in Sylmar and is homegrown from the Northeast San Fernando Valley. He is now in charge of all the stormwater capture projects in the valley. So I just love that your life comes full circle. So when we talk about contaminants and overburdened communities, you and I can relate to what we grew up with,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. So it's great to have you here. I'm very proud of what he's doing for our city. Members, are there any questions? Seeing that, I just want to thank sanitation and DWP and the mayor's office. I know someone walked in, Mr. Good was in here a little while ago. Thank you so much for working with us and engaging on this issue. I really sincerely believe that we are a better city as a result of that. And this is a tremendous opportunity to meet the city's obligation under this program. So thank you folks for being here. If there are no objections, I would like to move that we adopt the recommendations in the sanitation report and encourage the county and the business community to continue to work through any remaining concerns to allow the voters to have an opportunity to consider this initiative. Seeing no objections, that will be the order. Thank you very much, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Next meeting.